Okay, so imagine this. You're at a bustling port, right? The air is thick with the smell of salt and anticipation. Giant shipping containers everywhere being loaded and unloaded, each one holding a piece of this global trade puzzle.
It's an impressive sight, that's for sure.
It really is. But today we're zeroing in on one specific type of cargo electrical appliances. We're talking toasters, blenders, you name it. Because somebody's got to get all those gadgets from the factory floor to your kitchen counter, and that's where our deep dive begins today.
Sounds intriguing.
We're tackling what it takes to be an import-export specialist in the world of electrical appliances, and we've got this detailed career guide here to help us unpack it all.
Excellent. I'm happy to delve into that with you. It's a fascinating field. You wouldn't believe all the intricate steps, the logistics, the regulations, and even the cultural nuances that go into something as seemingly simple as shipping a toaster overseas.
I know, right? I mean, I love my blender, but I never stopped to think about the journey it took to get to me. So let's dive into this guide. It seems like this import-export world is about way more than just pushing paperwork.
Oh, absolutely. Think of an import-export specialist as the conductor of an orchestra. They have to wrangle customs regulations, navigate international trade laws, and become masters of logistics, all while making sure those appliances glide through the global supply chain without a hitch. It's a role that requires both a meticulous eye for detail and a strategic, big-picture perspective.
Okay, so it's like this balancing act between sweating the small stuff and seeing the grand scheme of things. This guide even suggests some specific educational backgrounds that would be beneficial, like international business, supply chain management. There's even mention of foreign language studies.
It makes sense when you think about it, right? When you're dealing with the entire world, clear communication is paramount. And it's not just about speaking the language, it's about understanding the cultural context, too. A seemingly small miscommunication could snowball into significant delays or even jeopardize an entire shipment.
That's a great point. So it's not just about knowing the rules, but also understanding the people you're working with, their customs, their way of doing business. I like that. The guide also dives into some essential skills, and one that really stood out to me was active listening. It sounds simple, but I bet it's crucial in this line of work.
Oh, without a doubt, active listening is essential. It's about truly understanding what's being said both verbally and non-verbally. Picking up on those subtle cues that could make all the difference in a negotiation or, say, when resolving a logistical nightmare. Let me tell you, I once witnessed a situation where a simple misinterpretation of delivery terms resulted in a shipment of high-end coffee makers being sent to the wrong continent.
You're kidding? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Talk about a costly mistake. I can see why active listening would be at the top of the skills list for this career. So we've got meticulous attention to detail, a global mindset, and top-notch communication skills. What else makes an import-export specialist tick? So we've established that this career path, right, it requires a pretty unique blend of skills, meticulous attention to detail, global awareness, a knack for communication.
It's a challenging but rewarding field, that's for sure.
It seems like it. But this guide we're diving into, it gets even more specific. It actually breaks down these core competencies of an import-export specialist. It even puts percentages to how important each one is, like it's a recipe for success in the field. I love that.
It's a very practical approach, I'd say. And what's even more interesting is that the top 3 skills they highlight, well, they aren't necessarily what you might expect.
Okay, now you've got me intrigued. What are these unexpected superpowers of a top-notch import-export specialist?
Okay, get this. Active listening, reading comprehension, and speaking. Those 3 clock in at a whopping 57%, which really highlights just how much of this role hinges on absorbing information accurately, processing it quickly, and communicating it clearly.
Oh, well, yeah. It's like being a language whiz. But instead of just words, you're fluent in the language of regulations, contracts, and international shipping logistics.
Exactly. And then you can't underestimate the importance of critical thinking either, right? The guide dedicates a solid 55% to that. You're constantly analyzing situations, troubleshooting problems, making judgment calls that could impact an entire supply chain.
It's like you're a detective, but instead of solving crimes, you're preventing logistical disasters.
That's a great way to put it. Think back to that coffee maker mishap I mentioned earlier. That's a prime example of where critical thinking could have really saved the day.
Right, because it's not enough to just follow the rule book. You have to be able to improvise, adapt, and find creative solutions when things inevitably go sideways.
Exactly. You've got to be able to think on your feet.
So we've got the communication trifecta, we've got critical thinking. What other skills does this guide highlight as important?
Well, coming in at a very respectable 56% is administration and management. Now, this one might seem obvious, but you'd be amazed how many people underestimate the sheer organizational powers it takes to juggle multiple shipments, navigate complex documentation, and keep everything running smoothly.
Right, it's like being the ultimate multitasker, the master of spreadsheets and deadlines, the one who keeps all those moving parts from turning into a chaotic mess.
Precisely. And then, of course, there's the technical side of things. The guide highlights computers and electronics at a significant 64%.
Well, that makes total sense. We are talking about electrical appliances here after all, so you've got to have at least a basic understanding of how these gadgets work.
Exactly. You're not expected to be an electrician or anything, but just knowing the difference between, let's say, a voltage converter and a power adapter, well, that could mean the difference between a satisfied customer and a potential safety hazard.
Oh, for sure. Safety first. Okay, so we've got the communication skills, we've got critical thinking, the organizational skills, and a touch of technical know-how. But what about the global aspect of this career? I mean, the guide mentioned foreign language studies, but does it go into any more detail about cultural awareness as a specific skill?
That's really interesting that you bring that up because while it's not listed as a standalone skill per se, cultural sensitivity is woven throughout this entire guide.
Really?
Yeah, whether it's understanding different negotiation styles, navigating varying customs regulations, or even just building a good rapport with your international colleagues.
It's the foundation for everything, isn't it?
It really is. Cultural awareness is that invisible thread that holds it all together.
It makes me think of that saying, to travel is to discover that everyone is wrong about other countries. This career path seems like it would be a crash course in understanding and appreciating those differences.
Oh, absolutely. And the guide encourages continuous learning in this area. Like they suggest attending industry conferences, joining some international trade organizations, even just following relevant companies and thought leaders on social media. It's a career that really requires you to stay curious, to be a lifelong learner in this ever-evolving landscape of global trade.
I like that. Okay, so we've got a pretty good grasp on the what of this career.
Yeah.
The skills, the knowledge, that essential global mindset. But let's talk about the how. What does the guide say about actually breaking into this field? Where do you even begin?
Well, it actually maps out a really clear path from entry level all the way up to management and provides real-world examples of what to expect at each stage. And you know what? It all starts with a healthy dose of humility.
Humility. Okay, now tell me more about that. Humility, huh?
Mm.
That's an interesting word to use when describing a career path that seems to require so much confidence and expertise. Why? Humility, of all things.
Well, because the guide really emphasizes that, breaking into the import-export world, it's often about starting small and being willing to learn from the ground up, really. It's about recognizing that you don't know everything right away, being eager to assist, and just soaking up every bit of knowledge you can from those around you.
So it's less about strutting in with all the answers and more about showing up with a willingness to learn, a hunger to prove yourself.
Exactly. And the guide actually offers some great practical advice for those just starting out. It highlights the value of internships, in import-export departments where you can actually witness the day-to-day operations firsthand. It even suggests exploring volunteer opportunities, maybe with nonprofits or smaller businesses that are involved in international trade.
So even if it's not your dream job right out of the gate, those experiences can provide valuable insights and help you build a network of contacts. It's about getting your foot in the door right and proving your mettle.
Precisely. And speaking of proving yourself, the guide then goes into what a typical junior import-export specialist role might entail. This is where you start taking on more responsibility, maybe managing specific accounts, coordinating directly with suppliers and customers. You're not just shadowing anymore, you're really in the game.
Okay, so you've paid your dues, you've soaked up all that knowledge, and now you're starting to call some of the shots. What does the guide say distinguishes a junior specialist from a more seasoned one?
Well, at this stage, it's all about showcasing those core skills we discussed earlier. The guide emphasizes proactivity, a strong grasp of those customs regulations, and importantly, negotiation skills. Remember, you're the liaison between various parties, and your ability to negotiate effectively, well, it can really make or break a deal.
Yeah, and I imagine this is where those certifications we talked about earlier, the CITP or CCS, could give you a real competitive edge.
Absolutely. They demonstrate, a real commitment to professional development and a deep understanding of the field, which can be incredibly valuable in the eyes of potential employers.
Okay, so you're proving your expertise, you're building your network, and you're climbing that career ladder. What's next on this import-export adventure?
Well, with experience and a proven track record, the guide suggests you might find yourself stepping into a Senior Import-Export Specialist role. Now, you're not just managing processes, you're thinking strategically about optimizing them. You might be overseeing multiple accounts, leading a team of specialists, and your decisions could impact the entire supply chain.
Okay, so you've gone from apprentice to conductor. You're leading the orchestra, making sure everyone's in sync,
Yeah.
and that the music is flowing smoothly.
And the stakes are higher. The guide really highlights the need for some deep analytical skills here, an ability to anticipate and mitigate risks, and a knack for finding those creative solutions to what can often be complex logistical challenges.
Right, they're the ones who keep the music playing even when someone throws away the sheet music.
Yeah.
But is there any room to grow beyond even this level? I mean, what's the pinnacle of this career path?
Well, the guide points toward import-export manager as an ultimate destination. This is the maestro who sets the strategic direction for the entire import-export operation. They oversee budgets, manage a team of specialists, and just ensure the smooth flow of goods from that factory floor to the end consumer, all while navigating the, as always, ever-changing landscape of international trade.
Wow, talk about a global impact. They've gone from just making sure those toasters get shipped on time to orchestrating this entire symphony of getting those toasters into homes around the world.
And they've earned every bit of that responsibility. The guide emphasizes leadership skills here, a deep understanding of global markets, and the ability to build and maintain those strong relationships with international partners. It's a demanding role, but for those with the passion, the drive, and that strategic vision, well, it offers some incredible rewards.
So there you have it. This deep dive has taken us through the ins and outs of becoming an import-export specialist, a career path that's as challenging as it is rewarding.
It really is. It's a career that requires this unique blend. Meticulous attention to detail, a passion for global trade, and just a knack for orchestrating these complex processes. But for those who thrive in a fast-paced, ever-evolving environment, it offers the chance to become a vital part of the global economy, one toaster, one blender, one coffee maker at a time.
It's been fascinating to really explore this hidden world of global commerce and the passionate individuals who keep it all running smoothly. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a sudden urge to make a smoothie and toast a bagel, and to think about the incredible journey those appliances took to get to my kitchen.